You're listening to a Roddenberry podcast.
Welcome, my children, to Engage, a Star Trek Roddenberry reaction progress where you engage with us, I engage with John, John engages with me, and we engage with each other.
Wait, Norman, I thought you were about to intro in my child.
I inhaled in my child,
Yes.
exhaled in welcome to Engage.
Okay, that is a much more welcoming intro to get. I love those memes. Like every time you see one that's, stares in my child, breathes in my child, and it still makes my skin crawl. Yeah.
Sorry, and we don't, obviously we use those memes to lace condescension, and we don't need to do that here. We are absolutely excited to read emails from you that come in, to missionlog@roddenberry.com, or messages that come on, Twitter or on Facebook, or even in terms of meta representing Engage, messages upon messages that we've already read. But this week, today, we have a very interesting one from Jason. So John, if you'd like to do the honors.
We do indeed. All right, buckle up, folks. So this is from Jason. He says, so I've been doing some thinking concerning the way in which the prophets have been portrayed on DS9. I feel like the biggest part of the problem is that the writers never really set up the rules by which they operate and seem to be making things up on the fly with them. Jason, yes, already I agree. The result is that, right, they're this weird marriage of elements of Star Trek aliens, Christianity, and Greek mythology. These elements ultimately don't play all that well together. I bring this up because I'm not sure there's all that much evidence to suggest that the prophets were ever intended to be anything more than Alien of the Week from Emissary. We don't really hear from them again until season 3, and it's Quark of all people who contacts them, and their arc doesn't really start until around season 6. The Christian elements are there in the Catholic Church-like structure, the good and evil dualism between them and the Pa race, and the apparent requirement of faith to be a part of participating in the religion. Meanwhile, the ideas about determinism and heroic destiny seem to be taken from Greek mythology. However, this is a hybrid that doesn't work perfectly because, especially since it seems that the writers, as smart as they are, don't seem to have a good grasp of the way the ancient Greeks approached religion. To the Greeks, the gods were not transcendent beings, but an almost material part of the world, and the focus of the religion was more about maintaining and understanding one's place in the world. One need not have faith in their existence, at least not in the way that one does in monotheistic traditions. Fate was a real and inescapable thing to the Greeks, binding onto the gods themselves. Even if you knew your destiny, there was nothing you could do to prevent it, and attempting to do so was often a good way to make things worse for you. Finally, the gods were not moral actors. While you were subordinate to them, their actions weren't inherently good or bad. One need only witness how the Olympians lined up and changed loyalties during the Trojan War, or the way seemed to delight in tormenting the great heroes. I have no objection to attempting to graft Trek to classical mythology or elements of the biblical tradition. Those things have endured for a reason and have themes which can speak to people today, regardless of whether or not they believe in the particularities of a certain deity. The problem for me is that you have to have a sense of how the gods are supposed to work. Granted, it's clear that changes in the Bible and Greek myths, but I feel that there's some degree of consistency in the rules that set up those traditions that's lacking in this show. Hence, I share in your frustrations in debating if the prophets know the future or not. If so, why not tell? Why be so vague? Did Sisko have any free will? Did any of us? I feel like this could have been remedied, if they knew what the writers wanted from them from the start, and or if the writers had a deeper understanding of religious traditions beyond the dominant monotheistic religions of the West. Anyway, if this was too big or too much of a TLDR thing, then I suggest you can sum it up with this one small question. Do we have free will or not? Okay, Jason, just dropping that one small question on us. Sure. Wow, Norman, you want to take a crack at this?
We've actually touched on this a fairly, deeply in some of the previous engages, and I think we can go all the way back to, some of our major problems in, say, the Sacrifice of Angels. We've had many emails coming in, both pro and con, our objective viewpoints on that.
Hmm.
For me, the issue with religion and Deep Space Nine is exactly the way that it's being described here, by Jason from this email, is that religion has to have a basis of consistency. This is where you use the through line of that religious consistency in order to be able to dictate the actions of the people that believe in said faith.
Hmm.
Now, Kira and her faith in the Bajorans and in the prophets is very consistent, but they don't talk to her. The interaction with the prophets and her and their emissary is very inconsistent. Therefore, it makes us feel as the audience that there isn't a plan, because whenever they want to affect the storyline, they do so in a very obfuscating kind of way and
Hmm.
very cryptic. You can only do that so many times to an audience before their suspension of disbelief utterly just fails and just is more frustrated with their appearances than on board with the storytelling. Writers, I think, use religion in storytelling to varying successful degrees. And in Deep Space Nine's case, they didn't. And I think they used that religion in terms of like a trap door in order to either create certain drama for their characters where they felt it was necessary, or a way for their characters to use that in order to escape certain destinies or fates.
Hmm.
Uh, Again, the sacrifice of angels, Cisco going into the wormhole, the prophets wishing away an entire fleet of Jem'Hadar warships that were going to invade the Alpha Quadrant. Sure, why not? You know why? Because you can't write your way out of something that massive, that
Yeah.
significant.
Yeah.
So why not? Why don't they just do that in total? Like just end the war, right?
Right.
Because
Right.
if Cisco has a
Thank you. Yeah.
destiny, just end the
Yeah.
war. And this is the problem where we have with Cisco, because if in fact he had free will, then they wouldn't have to warn him about marrying Cassidy. But they warn him to the point where you will walk a path of sorrow. I'm sorry, but he's already walked a path of sorrow. He lost his wife, he raised a son without a mother, and everything that he's done up until this point has been guided by the prophets or protected by the prophets. Therefore, at the end of your email, Jason, do we have free will? Well, in Deep Space Nine, we obviously don't, because the prophets have maneuvered and manipulated every single thing to bring Cisco up to this point. So there is no free will there. That is already manufactured destiny or predetermined fate,
Yeah.
in my opinion. What do you think,
Yeah.
John?
Yeah. I mean, that's perfectly said. I don't want to belabor the point too much here. I'll just kind of say to Jason, look, clearly you have an expertise in these lines of thought. And so I really appreciate that and you challenging us with this. I think you are absolutely right that, look, the writers of DS9 are writing a science fiction story and they're doing it week by week. And I seriously doubt anybody sat down early on and figured out all the intricacies of the religious background that's here. Because honestly, you don't really have to. As you do point out, look, religions on Earth change. Religions, therefore, in the story are probably going to change as well. They're not going to be totally consistent. That's okay. I respect DS9 for going that way anyway and just showing some complexity in religious belief, because that's something we really haven't had in Star Trek up until now. And it serves as a good contrast for maybe the more, well, certainly Starfleet, the Federation are secular organizations, but they have people and species of faith within that. So how do these things jibe? I like the fact that they're trying that. We do get to this incredibly difficult thing with Cisco or anybody who is in direct contact with the prophets, essentially learning like, well, they're just going to do whatever they're going to do, and they could change things or not. So what do we do in the meantime? Um, if the question is about whether or not Cisco has free will in this, yeah, I agree with you, Norman. If the question here, what Jason I love the way you end this email. Just simple, small question: do we have free will or not? This is a question for a whole other conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you call in one day and we hash it out. I feel like no, it's a no, but it's no because look, we're bound by limitations. Our bodies have limitations. Our histories present us with certain limitations and perspectives and views of our existence in this world. So I'm from a more deterministic background to say, like, everything that you do is determined by the things that came before and the physical conditions and limitations around you. But free will in sort of the colloquial sense, do you get to choose what you're having for lunch today? Yes. There are certain things that we ascribe to our own free will that I think keep us from going completely mad. But, check back with me in a couple of years and see how mad I've actually gone. So, Jason, this is awesome. This is a really cool conversation to have, and I really appreciate it. Where can Jason or other people not named Jason find us to tune in later, Norman?
Well, you can always find us here on YouTube on the Roddenberry Entertainment channel. Just go to YouTube/Roddenberry Prod. You can also subscribe to this list and make sure you turn on your notifications so that you're told when the next new episode of Engage is going to hit. You can always send your comments to us, as always, like on our podcast, Mission Log at Roddenberry.com. And you can find us on the social medias. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter at Mission Log Pod. And remember, just like Jason's amazing email, we may engage with your comments on the air.